So we put Professor Onyx, which is basically Liliana. Don't know why they didn't just name her Professor Liliana. I'm sure there's some lore behind that I don't know. But we wanted to just kind of do as an honorable mention because of the combo that everyone was kind of raving about.
Which was?
Oh, I was going to leave that up to you because I don't know the name of the card. I know you do.
I actually don't.
It was something about smog or something.
Chain of Smog. Yeah, I know it goes with it. Yeah, so I'm not sure how it works. To be honest with you, I just know the card went from 50 cents to $20.
Well, basically, I know what it does. Chain of Smog says, I believe you target an opponent, they discard 2 cards, and then that person who discarded can copy the spell and make you discard 2 cards.
Oh, okay.
And so you target yourself, basically just discard your hand and just keep causing yourself to discard. So you basically just make everyone lose their life.
Okay, I got it.
This crackle with power, I wanted to mention this because I think it's funny. Because in EDH, you just make a bunch of man. I mean, even if you pay 5 mana into this, you're doing 5 damage to up to 5 targets. But I mean, you throw like Torbrand in there, all the other ones that double damage, all these kinds of effects, and now this thing's doing a lot more damage. I think it's some people. It's a janky card. I think some jank people build around it.
Yep. I think this card is going to be a monster for the white side of it. I think that it's so good. So whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. So already hard enough to remove. And then whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell ability, it's white card draw. Like it's so good. And to make it even better, they have a 6-drop planeswalker on the other side with some amazing abilities. Like who wouldn't want this card?
Yeah, definitely the white side is really good, and the back side is just kind of if you don't need the front side, but I think more times than not you're going to use this front side just for the card draw. I don't think the Planeswalker one is as relevant unless you're putting it in a specific like 5-color Planeswalker kind of build.
Mm-hmm.
So Lore Mage here, I wanted to kind of put this in here because a lot of people in EDH like to deal with Entomb and these other kinds of tutor effects that tutor stuff to the graveyard, and this is a repeatable effect of that. So I think this is going to be highly desirable with those kind of black decks that use their graveyard, where they want creatures in the graveyard that in effect they can use to repeat this for no downside at all.
I don't know. I think the mana cost is too heavy. I think in the long run it'll be a fun janky card. I think it won't go over $5 though, financially.
Baleful Mastery. It's an instant. You may pay 2 mana rather than pay this spell's mana cost. If you do, your opponent gets to draw a card, but you get to exile target creature or planeswalker. Hands down, I think this is modern playable.
I think I have to agree with you after thinking about it a lot. Even though they draw a card, it removes one of the big problems. It's so good to literally basically exile almost every big problem in modern.
Yep, and yeah, I think all day you'd rather exile a current problem and let them draw a card. And I know drawing cards are powerful in Magic, but I still think it's worth it. I think when you play this card, it's going to be worth it in the end to make sure you don't fall behind.
Strict Protector. So, one colorless, one white, flying creature. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. Sideboard card. I mean, straight up, that's what it's going to be. Because it also can't hurt you, but obviously you're probably not going to have many trigger abilities like this. I think it's a ETB stopper. There's many things out there that are like this, but this says triggered ability instead of just ETBs. I think it's a huge upside, especially in white, more control. White's more delayed like that, anyways.
Yeah, I think you're going to find this in any kind of Taxus deck out there, EDH, Modern, Vintage,
Mm-hmm.
Legacy, you name it, it's going to be in the sideboard in any kind of Taxus deck that they have a trouble dealing with those kind of triggered abilities.
My absolute favorite card of this set, but I feel like I'm alone on this one. It's Test of Talents. One blue, one colorless. Counter target instant or sorcery. You search their library, their graveyard, their hand, and exile any number of it with that same name. That is absolutely insane. This card is going to be an expensive foil. This card's going to be an expensive uncommon. I think this is my pick of the set personally, that I think is going to be one of the top tier cards.
Yeah, we've seen other cards like this, like Legion's End. I find this as I play a lot of mono blue and Pioneer. This is a great sideboard for me to go against control with.
I am just telling you guys, this card, this uncommon, isn't, if as long as I don't reprint it 18 times, is going to be an extremely desired card in many, many, many decks. I think it's amazing. I think there's so many decks you can use it in. The only thing, obviously, it isn't good in is EDH because, obviously, I mean, it still counters an instant or sorcery for 2, but negate. So it's literally negate, but kind of mildly better. Especially with that new red common where you can have any number in your deck. It removes all of them. Like, there's no way I'm not going to pick up as many copies of this as I can.
All right, Casmina, Enigma, Sage. I had some mixed feelings about this, and then with talking some other Magic people, I'm convinced this card is actually really good. So she gives each other playing well trigger you control with loyalty abilities that she has. So she has like a +2 scry one, -X make a creature with some X plus X. They really don't matter. The +2 that really all that matters. And Lee here doesn't think she's that great, but the reason she's great is so you have her out and Narset out, you can start plussing Narset.
Sure, but I don't view it as that great.
I mean,
Like, in my mind, I'm not gonna play Casmina to make sure Narset gets plussed up. It's just, in my mind, is probably one of the worst mythics of the set. I think one of the worst planeswalkers, I should say. It's 3 mana, great, but Nissa, the one from Amonkhet, never saw play, and neither will this.
well, I don't think this will see much standard play or I think this is EDH in Super Friends decks. This is really good to, especially with some of these older planeswalkers that have a really low ult, but it only gets a +1. Now it gets a +2. I think it makes these Super Friend decks extremely faster.
I think it'll be EDH playable, yes, but I think it's not gonna be over a $10 planeswalker.
Oh no, I don't think so.
One of my favorite cards of the set. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may too. If they don't, you may copy that spell. You literally get to copy a buttload of awesome spells, extra turns, anything crazy. I mean, it's just unreal for a creature that also just does awesome taxing abilities. And it's colorless. It can go in so many decks. It's ridiculous.
I think this card's going to be expensive.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
100%.
even if you don't really care about instants and sorceries, if you don't want your stuff countered, you put this in that deck because if they counter your stuff and they don't have the mana to pay, you get to copy their counter spell and counter their counter. So this card is absolutely EDH staple right off the bat. I think we probably should have left up some tabs on pre-order prices. I believe last time I looked at this was pre-ordering around $10. I could see it going higher than that, maybe dropping down a little bit because people might not see how good this card is. But I think this card is going to be probably around $15 to $20.
I'm kind of curious what the purchase order is real quick on those. Wandering. What's the second word?
Arc.
How do you spell it?
Archaic. The back ability doesn't really matter. It's each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library, reveals a land card or an instance of sorcery among them, puts that card they reveal into their hands and the rest to the bottom, and then each player gains their. It's a group hug kind of thing.
I think it's just kind of cool. I mean, straight up, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't think there's much else to it. It's around $9-10, like you said, for the pre-order price. I mean, after release is the time to pick it up because it'll probably be the cheapest it's ever gonna be. I
It's
think
just
it's
gonna
gonna go
be one
higher.
of those cards that you're like, oh, I'm gonna cast Cultivate, and then you're gonna have someone like, you're gonna pay two for that.
It's the fact
So,
that you get to copy in the multiplayer game 3 different opponents on the average, just copy their spells for them. It's
and
so amazing.
I could see this being played in standard against a heavy control list that's using a lot of counter spells, removal, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't think this is too much mana for anything higher than standard.
Yeah, I'll agree to that. I think EDH is where it's going to shine, though, and EDH is driving the game right now. So
Strixhaven Stadium. This is kind of another like honorable mention because it's the first mana rock in Magic that you can make someone lose the game with. So it taps for mana. You get to put a point counter on it right off the bat. And then whenever one of your creatures deals a damage to you, you have to remove a point counter from it. But whenever one of your creatures deals combat damage to an opponent, you get to put a point counter on it. And then if it has 10 or more point counters on them, you get to remove them, and then that player loses the game.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it's cool.
I think in like EDH, obviously this is going to be EDH playable. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I don't think you're going to see this in any other format just because cards like these don't see play in Modern and Pioneer and Standard. But in like a Blitzkrieg kind of deck, in EDH, like Edric, stuff that uses a lot of evasive creatures that wants to do. What's the one, Demir one, the Ninja Bitch? What's her name?
is that the one that ninjutsu's?
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. It's one that was reprinted from Commander Legends.
yeah, like so this could just easily, if no one's paying attention to you, just knock a player out of the game. Not going to be too expensive. It'll be a couple bucks maybe most, but Introduction to Annihilation. I wanted to highlight this because of Pauper. Just 5 mana to exile target permanent, and then its control draws a card. Like we've said previously before, letting your opponent to draw a card to exile permanent that's a must answer threat is worth it all day. Your equivalent to this spell was the 7-drop one that came in the Eldrazi time that just exiles target permanent. So I think Urza Tron decks will love adding this to their list.
So before we pan over and exit here, we're gonna start talking about the Mystical Archive cards, and we're only gonna show one because one comes in every pack. But we're gonna show the by far worst artwork I've ever seen in my life.
And if you haven't seen it, this is going to be your one and only warning on the worst art I've ever seen in Magic. Oh god, shield your eyes.
It literally is. That's real. It is a real artwork that Wizards of the Coast approved for a
This looks like a
card.
4-year-old shop got on my computer and used Photoshop. It's probably the worst.
Quality.
Yeah, the quality is just terrible. I
It's
mean,
literally a living nightmare.
did they use paint? Because that's what it looks like they used.
I mean, the same artist, I believe, did Harmonize, and it looks just as bad.
But
This one's
see,
probably a little worse,
see,
but
look, I'm gonna
it's
hover over this, and we're gonna see probably a different artist. Who's this? Carrie. So Carrie. Yeah, look at way better.
amazing artwork.
Amazing.
I think that was coming in the Japanese set, so I believe they have Japanese artists make them. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are kind of just the cards we wanted to point out and what we kind of thought about them. If we didn't mention a card here, it doesn't mean that it's not on our radar. We think it's bad. There's 200 something cards in the set, so
And there's also a lot of people that have already talked about or over talked about some certain artifact that may only that lets you not cast permanent spells, and we think you'll go everywhere for that, and you've seen enough of it, so we try to go for something a little different, like this quality artwork.
I'm gonna go wash my eyes.
Dude, this is interesting. I think this set's cool. I think the common uncommons are great. I think the Mystical Archive was a great addition. I think it adds a lot of value to the booster boxes. I think Tainted Pact was amazing. I think Wizards of the Coast needs to reevaluate their artist decisions, especially on certain Faithless Looting cards and Harmonize. I think that everybody has ridiculed them for it. I don't know who approved it, but this is not Magic. Magic is mythical, awesome beasts that you cast and explode and things. And then you've got this.
Yeah, this look this artwork is just terrible. It someone put very minimal effort in it. So
And I can't believe it got approved. I don't know what they were thinking.
so I think we're gonna leave it on this note. Someone got paid for that. All right. Well, thanks for watching.
Yep, bye.